Hello Law Matrix viewers. In this tutorial, we're summarizing the case of Democratic Alliance for Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. This case focuses on the separation of powers between the national executive and parliament regarding international relations and treaty making, specifically concerning South Africa's withdrawal from the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, ICC. Background of the case. The litigation history surrounding the ICC began with the South African government's refusal to arrest and surrender President Omar Hassan Ahmad al-Bashir of Sudan to the ICC when he visited in June 2015. President al-Bashir was accused of serious international crimes, including war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, related to events in Darfur. The government's failure to arrest him led to an urgent application by the Southern African Litigation Center, SALC, which sought orders declaring the government's actions unconstitutional and compelling them to surrender President al-Bashir to the ICC. The government argued that President al-Bashir enjoyed immunity under international customary law. A full bench of the court declared the government's failure to arrest him inconsistent with the Constitution and unlawful. Decision to withdraw from the Rome Statute. On October 19, 2016, the National Executive decided to withdraw from the Rome Statute. On the same day, the Minister of International Relations signed and deposited a notice of withdrawal with the Secretary General of the United Nations. This action initiated South Africa's withdrawal process, which would take effect 12 months after the notice was deposited, meaning South Africa would cease to be a state party in October 2017. The government explained that this decision was due to conflicting international law obligations, particularly when hosting the AU summit in June 2015. They faced an obligation to arrest President al-Bashir under the Rome Statute, while also having an obligation to the AU to grant immunity under the host agreement and customary international law. Legal challenge by the Democratic Alliance, DA. The Democratic Alliance, DA, the largest minority party in Parliament, launched an application to challenge the executive's decision to withdraw from the Rome Statute without parliamentary approval. They sought orders declaring the notice of withdrawal and the underlying cabinet decision unconstitutional and invalid. The DA was supported by several non-governmental civil rights organizations, including the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, CASAC, the Southern Africa Litigation Center, SALC, the Center for Human Rights, CHR, and the Helen Suzman Foundation, HSF. Key issues for determination. The case revolved around several key issues: whether prior parliamentary approval and the repeal of the Implementation Act were required before the notice of withdrawal was given, whether a process of public participation in Parliament should have preceded the lodging of the notice of withdrawal, whether the withdrawal was procedurally rational, whether the state's obligations under Section 7(2) of the Constitution precluded the withdrawal from the Rome Statute altogether. The court's findings. The court found that prior parliamentary approval and repeal of the Implementation Act were required before the notice of withdrawal from the Rome Statute could be delivered. The court reasoned that since Parliament must approve an international agreement for it to bind South Africa, it must also be Parliament that decides whether an international agreement ceases to bind the country. The delivery of the notice of withdrawal was procedurally irrational. The National Executive did not consult Parliament as it was obliged to do before delivering the notice of withdrawal. The court declined to rule on the substantive grounds of review, substantive irrationality, and the violation of Section 7(2) obligations, because the process-based arguments were dispositive of the matter. Conclusion and order. The court declared the notice of withdrawal from the Rome Statute, signed by the Minister of International Relations on October 19, 2016, unconstitutional and invalid due to the lack of prior parliamentary approval. Similarly, the cabinet decision to deliver the notice of withdrawal without prior parliamentary approval was also declared unconstitutional and invalid. The court ordered the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, and the President of the Republic of South Africa to forthwith revoke the notice of withdrawal. The government respondents were also ordered to pay the applicant's costs. That's the summary of this case. I hope it brings clarity. If this tutorial was helpful, Please support the channel by liking this video and subscribing to Law Matrix for more summaries tailored for UNISA students. Let me know your next case.